Welcome to another episode of GWTV Unstoppable, your one-stop shop for all things GW sports. In case you're new to the program, I'm Sean Grant, and sitting next to me is my co-anchor, Casey Decker. Casey, what do we have in store for the sports fans today?
A whole lot, Sean. It's a big month for GW sports. We'll catch up with the basketball teams as they near the postseason and discuss what they need to do to finish strong. We'll look at some of the sports already in the postseason, like track and squash, as well as those teams just starting out their seasons, from women's water polo to lacrosse. We've got reports on both the men's and women's tennis squads as they begin their indoor seasons, and on the high-flying, high-performing Colonial Gymnastics team. And finally, I'll sit down with the first-year head coach of women's basketball, Jennifer Rosati. Like I said, Sean, we've got a ton of action coming at you, so get ready for Unstoppable.
From the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University, you're watching Unstoppable with Casey Decker and Sean Grant.
We'll start things off with men's basketball, where the word of the day is unpredictable. This is a team that can win tough games and lose seemingly easy ones. They're just a game above 500 at 13-12 and have a losing record in the A10. We've seen a number of high points and low points, sometimes within seconds of each other, as in that complete absurdity that was the VCU game.
Well, and Casey, along with that VCU game, obviously heartbreaking if you watched our coverage. You saw what we had to say about that. But along with that, this team is just dropping too many conference games. They've lost to URI, Richmond, VCU, as we've said. So just it's tough for a team to have any kind of success if you're not winning those conference games. You can't solely rely on your non-conference schedule to get you enough wins to get into the postseason. But that VCU game. So some of the things we did break down, though. I mean, really kind of a good example of what we've seen from this team the entire season. Bad shot selection, not good passing. They played some pretty good defense, like we commented on. But really, we've seen some of their struggles in that game.
Of course, the highlight, or rather the low light of that game, was the way it ended. Yuto Watanabe with what looked like a buzzer beater three, and then 0.4 seconds left on the clock. All VCU has is to inbound it, and they have like one last shot. But Colin Goss fouls, and they get two shots. They make both of them. VCU wins the game. Now, Colin Goss literally changing the game of basketball. There's a rule change now because what happened was the person who drew the charge from Goss, he had his left foot out of bounds. Now, a lot of people thought at first that's not legal. Right. But there was nothing in the rule book that said that was illegal. The NCAA reviewed that, and they said maybe there should be. And so right now they're almost certainly going to change that rule to make what happened at the end of that game illegal. So congratulations to Colin Goss on changing the game.
Well, but in talking about, some of those other big men other than Colin Goss, we have Colin Smith, who, for reasons that we're not sure of, has had very limited playing time. Maybe coach wants to develop him more, but he started out the season pretty strongly, so it's a little bit of a mystery why he's, not getting the same amount of playing time. And then Tyler Kavanaugh, something that I've harped on the entire season is his shot selection. And again, in that VCU game was no different. And actually in the game they just played, I don't think it was last night, but before, he was, I think, 3 for 13 from the field or something like that, something ridiculous like that. And as a senior leader, a graduate leader on that team even, he should know that he needs to take good shots, and if he takes good shots, I feel like that's something that could permeate to the rest of the team and help with their ball movement, which we said has been atrocious as well.
I agree with you 100%. He's a good shooter normally, and when you're shooting that low, when you're shooting 3 for 13, the only reason is shot selection. There are some bright spots, though. As we saw in the VCU game, they finally figured out how to handle the press. And it was against the Havoc, too, one of the best presses in the country. Right. They had problems with the press early on, so I'm glad to see Coach Joseph and the team were able to figure that out. They also had great defense. I mean, obviously, they held VCU to under 60 points. That was a really great defensive game, so some good things there from VCU.
Now, I think from
GW, rather.
Rather. Well, we saw good things from both, bad things from both. But I think one last thing that I want to note here is that we've seen Coach Maurice Joseph and this GW team come into games with just very, very strong, game plans. Like, they've game planned very well. They have the right lineup set up for the team that they're playing. But something that I just haven't seen a lot is in-game adjustments. So when a team like VCU is going to make an adjustment in-game, they're not going to press as much because GW's been breaking that press. Whatever they do, GW just has not been making those same kind of adjustments. And that's something that I really think that we need to see from them going forward. But now, swinging it around the court to women's basketball, where the girls are currently sitting at second place in the A10 with an 11-3 conference record. The team is currently on a 5-game winning streak after beating Fordham, LaSalle, URI, who they beat by nearly 40 points, A10 division leader Dayton, and St. Bonaventure. The win against Dayton is huge because it could situate GW atop the conference, and it bodes well for the women making another impressive run in the A10 tournament this year. On an individual level, Lexi Martins has continued to dominate for the Colonials as she consistently puts up around 20 points and 8 rebounds per game.
Lexi Martins has been outstanding this year. She's the queen of the double-double. She's just absolutely terrific. And the other player on the team who has been absolutely crucial, of course, is Kyra Washington. Now, she was injured for a while there, and that's when we had a couple losses, including that pretty bad loss to Duquesne. But as soon as she came back, we saw it in that Dayton game that the chemistry of the team when she is in the game is just remarkable. They really know how to play together. And even though people like Lexi Martins and Kyra Washington are leading in the stats, we really see an all-around, well-developed team that Coach Rosati has put together.
Well, and going off of that, actually, Casey, with Kyra Washington is, and I want to make a little bit of comparison here to the Twin Towers, hearkening back to the Spurs when you had David Robinson and Tim Duncan early in his career. And so when you have two forwards like that, both Kyra Washington and Lexi Martins, who really dominate on the glass and they dominate in the paint, and Kyra Washington also a tremendous shot blocker as well. When you have a tandem like that, it's very, very easy to control a game, especially control the pace of a game, with the rebounding. So I think that bodes well for them going into the tournament. Especially in the NCAA tournament, rebounding is always a big factor.
Despite how well they're playing, personally, I think my favorite player on the team right now is Maylin Bautista. She has just been absolutely impressive at the point guard position. She is a true point guard. She doesn't just dribble the ball up and then let things happen. She commands the team. She gets the ball to where it needs to go. She's a great passer, and she's not leading in any of the stats necessarily, but she is a true point guard, which is something we have not seen from the men's team.
That's true, and we've commented back and forth, Casey, about how much we love the way that Maylin Bautista plays, directing people after she makes a pass. We even heard someone else mention that she does that in practice. So just showing that she really takes that, in practice all over the place. She is directing this team, especially as a young sophomore. That's very impressive.
And of course, I think the hallmark of this team has been its aggressive defense, especially from players like Hannah Shibley. We have just seen that when you hold a team like Dayton to under 40 points, that is a superb defensive effort.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's really been, to me, what this team is known for. I think they're known for being aggressive and just not letting you get very many good shots off.
Right.
And now we're going to look at gymnastics, another area of great strength for GW. The women right now are the number 20 team in the country. Until last week, they had placed first in every single match. In their last meet, which included 2 other ranked opponents, they placed 3rd out of 4.
Well, and Casey, that actually is the strongest start in program history for the GW women's team. Placing first in those first 3 meets. So great job to them. Obviously, in that last meet, they would have liked to have performed a little bit better, given how they started the season. But they were going up against some more stiff competition. Missouri, who they played against, was ranked number 13 at the time of that meet. Iowa State was ranked number 25. Excuse me. So they might have liked to have played better against Iowa State. But sometimes you're not going to control how you perform in a certain meet. Sometimes it's just going to go the way it is.
One player in particular, or one gymnast in particular, I want to point out is Chelsea Rainieri. Last week, she was the East Atlantic Gymnastics League co-specialist of the week, thanks largely to her performance in the floor and the vault events during the Brownie and Girl Scout Day meet. It was the 4th time she's won that honor, and she was actually, right now, she is 2nd in the vault overall in the East Atlantic Gymnastics League. So she is someone to look out for right now this season.
Definitely.
And now our own Alexis Letty got to sit down with Chelsea to discuss the season so far. Letty?
GW Gymnastics is hot this year. Last year, the Colonials were ranked 24th and have now jumped to the number 14 spot in NCAA Division I gymnastics.
So this year, I think the biggest change from last year is just the fact that we have more depth on our team. We have a lot of girls who can go up and compete for us.
13 gymnasts out of the 17-member roster have been able to compete for GW this season. They have been cheered on by teammates along the way.
So our way of cheering and giving them energy is so they can fuel themselves and believe in themselves when they go up and compete for us.
Upperclassmen Demora, Druin Allaire, and Wynn Stanley have consistently competed in all-around for GW.
But for the most part, I think the experience is just what is helping us a lot this year.
The Colonials have won all but 1 meet this season. With 6 meets left, GW plans to work to improve on small things every day.
Just really going after everything and saving as much as little tense as possible so that we can overall have like a big score at the end.
With Unstoppable, this is Alexis Letty.
Thanks, Letty. Serving it up to the tennis courts now, where the men's team is currently 5-3, beating the likes of Morgan State, Austin Peay, NIU, Grandview, and Monmouth. Individually, the boys have been led by junior Chris Fletcher, who won A10 Player of the Week honors back in January and then helped the boys down Morgan State on February 2nd. Fletcher fared well this week too, as he defeated his opponent against Monmouth. Another strong performer in those matches was Julius Taverionis, who defeated his opponent Nicola Pippola. At the time, Pippola was individually ranked number 99 in the country, a very impressive opponent for Taverionis to beat. And now, our own Matt Kerwin got the chance to talk to Chris Fletcher to ask him about the season so far. Matt?
Thanks, Sean and Casey. I'm here at the Southeastern Tennis Center, where our own GW Colonials are taking on the Monmouth Hawks in singles and doubles matches. The Colonials have just come off some tough matches against Florida State and Drake, and I caught up with junior Chris Fletcher and his opinion on the season thus far.
To say, compared to the last 2 years, we're off to a really good start.
I also spoke to Jakob Bahun on his transition to the team.
Not easy to adjust as the area or the team. I mean, the team spirit is great, so the guys made it easier for me to adapt. We got a great coach, great team spirit. I mean, it's all good.
I was able to speak to Coach McPherson about his goals this season.
Just taking it match by match. I mean, every opponent is a new challenge, and we'll see where that leads us at the end of the day. But certainly, we have our eyes on the Atlantic 10 Championship.
Matches like this, build our confidence and, getting ready for conference in April.
It is great to see the GW tennis team is pumping on all cylinders yet again for that 4th championship in a row. For Unstoppable, this is Matt Kerwin.
Thanks, Matt. Meanwhile, women's tennis has been off to a slow start. They're 2-3 overall and have yet to win a game at home or beat an A10 opponent. There are a couple of bright spots, though, as they picked up a solid 5-2 win at Navy, and junior Marie-Louise DeCamp was recently awarded A10 Player of the Week. For more on this, we go to Danny Gill, who caught up with a few of the team's players.
Hi, this is Danny Gill for GWTV Unstoppable. Today we'll be talking to the women's tennis team. We'll be talking to senior Taylor Niederlander and a freshman from Istanbul, Melis Bayraktaroglu. And the women's tennis team will be facing off against UMass tomorrow and then Navy on Sunday. So let's see what they got to say.
Well, my dad was a tennis player as well, so I practically grew up on the courts. And I was just wandering around with my dad's racket, and he was just throwing me balls. So he decided to send me a summer camp, and that's how I developed my tennis. I think compared to Turkey, here is more professional. And having a team such as like this is such a big opportunity for me. Because having a coach, 2 coaches for 8 people is a big thing. In Turkey, we were 15 people, and we only had 2 coaches. So here is more professional, and you can improve better.
I think this spring season we're a lot stronger. We have we're a deeper team. We've got some really good transfers and a great freshman, Mel, like we talked to earlier. So I'm really looking forward to it. We've had a strong start to the season so far.
Again, this is Danny Gill for GWTV Unstoppable. Back to you, Sean and Casey.
Thanks for that, Danny. We're going to go to a short commercial break now, and when we come back, we'll finish up our roundup.
Great journalism matters because it's critical to a democracy that the public is informed and engaged and involved. And that happens by having credible information. And so the most important thing, whatever the delivery platform, whatever the technology, whatever the business model, is that the information itself is coming in solid and important ways and is being conveyed in compelling ways because there's so much noise and competition out there. And so that's what I really want our students to be able to do, be brilliant storytellers, keen observers, and compelling communicators.
Welcome back. Sticking with the racket theme, let's move on to men's squash, where the boys currently sit at number 13 in the nation with a 7-7 record overall. The boys recently beat the likes of Virginia, number 15 Franklin and Marshall, Cornell, and Dickinson, but dropped matches to Yale, St. Lawrence, and Drexel. Individually, Andres DeFutos has led the team as he won the Colonial of the Week honors for his performances against Virginia and Franklin and Marshall.
Sean, a big weekend coming up for this team. They're at the CSA College Squash Association Nationals. They're playing in the B division, so they're not in running for the championship, but junior Omar Musel told Unstoppable that they'll be hoping to improve their ranking to number 9. If they win the tournament, they'll become number 9 in the country, which is the highest ranking, would be the highest ranking in program history.
Wow.
As for the women's team in squash, they're also ranked number 13 in the CSA. They're 7-8 on the year, and though they've struggled against the power teams from the Ivy League, in their final regular season matchup, they demolished 20th ranked Dickinson 9-0.
Well, and now looking at the women's team, there's something that I kind of wanted to look at is for squash, the season is actually split up where they play half of their games in the fall and then they play the other half in the spring. Now, a lot of sports play spring and fall, but it's interesting to see that for squash, your record carries over from the fall to the spring. I wasn't sure if this was something that maybe, does it kill momentum? Does it do something like that? Although it doesn't seem to have affected the men's team as much as it has affected the women's team. You know, both of them are around 500, but I thought that was just an interesting point to make up. But now, jumping into the pool with men's swimming and diving, where the boys have killed it in their spring season so far, winning their first 3 meets. They beat Georgetown to open up the spring competition by a combined score of 188.5 to 105.5. After that, they beat George Mason 179 to 144, and then finally they beat Old Dominion 162 to 136 to finish out their regular season competition. The men's team started off the A10 championships with a bang as they set a record in the 200 medley relay. Hopefully they can keep that momentum going as they are competing at this very moment. We wish our boys the best of luck in that competition.
Sean, one thing I want to highlight about this team is one player in particular who's doing really well. That's sophomore diver Jacob Ortiz. He has yet to lose in the 1 meter event, yet to place anything below first in that event. He's also set the program record in that event when they played George Mason, and he's also consistently placed at or near the top in the 3 meter event. Now, the female swimmer and divers are currently in Ohio for the A10 championships. In the regular season, they had 6 wins and 4 losses when facing opponents head-to-head, in addition to a 14-team meet in which they placed 6th. A fairly average season on the whole for the team, but we'll see if they can at least beat their 9th place finish in last year's conference championships. The women started off the A10 similar to the men's, as they set a school record in the 800-yard freestyle relay. Just like the men, they're also competing right now, so good luck to them. On the individual level, be on the lookout for the strong young swimmers Emily Tsang and Jackie Torres, both of whom have serious potential to make the podium. And on the diving end, Miranda Simon has been the standard bearer all year for GW. She's already qualified for NCAA prelims with her stellar showings in both the 1 and 3 meter events.
Well, and you know, Casey, you talked about Jackie Torres very briefly there. She has been dominant so far. You know, she's won in the 200-yard butterfly, you know, the 200-yard breaststroke. It's just a ton of events that she's been winning on a consistent basis, and she's very young too, a very strong performer for the team. And we'd also like to congratulate Iman Lee, who was recently named GW's Community Service Athlete of the Month for January. So congratulations to her for that. Jogging out to the track now, where the men's team is gearing up for the A10 championships for their indoor season. So far, the boys have competed well, as they broke 2 records at the Coach I Open to begin indoor competition. They went on to place 5th out of 12 teams at the Maryland Invitational, and in that meet, junior and avid Unstoppable fan Ryan DePinto won the mile event in spectacular fashion, setting a new school record. The Colonials as a team set 16 personal records in that meet. Finally, in the Wesley Brown Invitational, the team set 5 new program records and 19 personal records, a very strong showing. The boys will be competing at the A10 championships this weekend, and we wish them, including our own producer Andy Weber, the best of luck.
The women, too, have wrapped up the regular indoor season and are at A10s across the river in Fairfax this weekend. When competing as a team, this group hasn't excelled. Their 2 team meets resulted in places 9 out of 14 and 6 out of 9. But individually, there have been some great outings. At the Navy Sweetheart Multi-Mix Invitational last week, all 11 runners PR'd. In the same meet, Miranda DiBiasio won the 5K with a record-beating time of 17 minutes and 4 seconds. And sophomore Hallie Brown also won the mile for GW, breaking the program record with a time of 4 minutes, 57 seconds.
Moving over to women's lacrosse now, where the girls dropped their season opener to Monmouth University in a closely contested 16-15 match. The girls went on to get mauled by Georgetown 16-5 on Wednesday of this week. It seems that the girls will really have to make some adjustments going forward, especially on defense, if they want to pick up some wins. Let's hope that they can do that.
The women's water polo team started off their season at the Bison Invitational in Pennsylvania last weekend. They got off to a good start with back-to-back wins, but then followed that up with 2 consecutive losses. Both losses were to ranked opponents. Some early leaders on this team are juniors Scarlett Hallahan and Jacqueline Bywater, who in the first matches generally were at the top of the list for goals, assists, and steals. But in the later games, some of the freshmen started to show their potential, namely Kira Bruno and Ali Yokim. With the season just getting underway, it'll be exciting to see how they develop and whether they can become a team capable of downing ranked opponents and possibly getting ranked themselves.
We're going to go to a short commercial break right now, but stay tuned. When we come back, women's basketball coach Jen Rosati will join Casey here in the studio.
This season, both of GW's basketball teams began the year with brand new head coaches. That naturally caused some anxiety in the Colonial fan base, but Jennifer Rosati quickly quieted that nervousness when she led the women's team to win 7 of their first 10 games. Since then, her team has remained near the top of the A10 and has real potential to make the big dance. Coach Rosati joins me now. Coach, in a line, how would you assess the season so far?
I think it's been great. I think the transition with the new coaching staff has been very smooth, and I credit the players for that. I think that they've been very receptive, especially the senior class, to walk into their last year and have a brand new system and a brand new coach. They've really been, super coachable and really easy to work with. So I give a lot of the credit to them.
When you came into the season, when you joined this team, what were you expecting?
Well, I was definitely expecting a high level, of basketball. We walked into a championship program. We walked into a group of kids that had already been to 2 NCAA tournaments and still had very high expectations for what they could continue to accomplish. So there was no time to really have a transition period in terms of a rebuild. It was just, hey, we want to win. We want to win at A10 again. We want to go to the NCAA tournament. We want you to help us figure out how to win in the NCAA tournament. So to be honest with you, the player expectations were really high, and that made it a lot easier for me.
As you mentioned, make the NCAA tournament last year. The team, though, was also built around Jonquel Jones, one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
How did you adapt to not having that player on the team? What was your game plan?
Yeah, well, I think that it worked 2 ways. One, we obviously had to build a new system that didn't rely on her and Lauren Chase, who were big parts of the program, big parts of the offense and the defense. But also, I think it kind of developed a little bit of chip on the shoulder of everybody on the team. They got picked to finish 4th in the conference, and I think they were a little upset by that, knowing that they had a lot of success when Jonquel was out with injury last year. They felt they deserved more respect. But yeah, I think that there was just a hunger to prove themselves, to prove that they could, turn it around quickly with the new staff and continue the success that they were used to. So we just worked really hard to make the offense a little bit more inclusive, to try and get more people to be options, and to have that ball move a little bit quicker without the dribble, because we have more guys that are capable of shooting, scoring in the post, and scoring without coming off of a ball screen than they had in the past. And so we just wanted to take advantage of all the options.
Have your goals changed at all since when you began the season and where you're at now that you're seeing such a high level of play?
Not really, to be honest with you. One of the reasons that I took the job was it was attractive in terms of playing at a high level and having a lot of success. The prior coaching staff did a phenomenal job of building a championship culture, and it was one of the reasons that I wanted to come here. So I already walked in with a very high expectation. I knew that the team was going to want to win and was not going to be able to settle for anything less than another championship. So I think that put a little pressure on us as a staff, but the kind of pressure that we wanted. And now that we've seen the team and we've seen the league, I think that those expectations were very realistic. We beat Dayton, the first place team in the league. We're one game out of first place right now, heading into the last week of this regular season. So I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to accomplish our goals.
So in the past, the team, like we've talked about, has made the tournament, but they haven't done so well once they've gotten to the tournament.
Yeah.
They've struggled to get out of that first round. Is it a goal for you not only to make the tournament now, but to get to the next round?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing at a time and one day at a time. But yes, that was the ultimate goal, was to find a way to put ourselves in a position based off of the strength of schedule that we had in the non-conference, the success that we had in the regular season against quality A10 opponents, to create a scenario where we're able to get a good seed and then be prepared physically and mentally for that next step. Sometimes it's out of your control where you get seeded, where you get placed, the opponent that you have in the first round. It could be a great matchup or it could be a really tough matchup. So I think some of that's out of our control, but what we do over the next few weeks to get ourselves ready to make sure that we prepare to not just win the championship, but to be playing really good basketball and be confident in our ability, that's in our control, and that's what we're going to take care of.
I wanted to ask about some of those strong non-conference games. What effect did it have to come that close to beating Syracuse early in the season?
I think that it proved to our team that we can compete with most teams in the country. I think they were disappointed that we had gotten ourselves in a hole early because of the way we finished the game. To lose by one possession makes you think back to the earlier in the game to what we could have done to make that outcome different. But I think it catapulted us quickly to that next day where we took care of business against Florida Gulf Coast, Western Kentucky, and then continued to play really well in December. And we don't necessarily have that great quality non-conference win, but some of that has to do with the fact that we were still learning each other. If we go back now with the team we have and the experience we have and the chemistry we have and play some of those games now, I think it would be different. And so I think just the fact that we were in a lot of those games, we had quality competition on the road and at home, has certainly prepared for the success that we've had in the A10s.
Getting to know each other at the beginning of the season, the very first game, your first game out, was a pretty bad loss to Georgetown. How did you recover from that? What did you tell the team?
Yeah, it was funny because the first half of that game felt so right and so good, and I think it was like almost like an eye-opening, like, wow, this is what we could be. And then the fourth quarter came and we lost our composure, and all of a sudden we have players in positions that they weren't used to being in, and they weren't really ready to close that game out on the road. But I think, again, it showed the team what we're capable of. It showed them the fun that we can have playing together. And I think it built some credibility in terms of our trust in each other as a staff and a team, but also the team within themselves. And then it gave them a hunger because, it was a game we certainly look back at and regret. But I think it gave them a hunger to kind of keep working to get better and believing that the system was going to work for them.
What do other teams say about you? What is this team known for?
I don't know what other teams say about us, but I would say over the last few weeks, especially with this 5-game win streak we're on, that we're very much defined by our post play. We've been very successful, throwing the ball into Kyra and Lexi Martins and Kelly Prangy, and those guys have, led us primarily in the scoring column. But I also hope that they would talk about our toughness. I don't know that I've ever coached a player that's tougher than Hannah Shively. I think Maylin Batista and Shannon Cranshaw don't get the credit they deserve in terms of their mental and physical toughness. And we just have a deep bench, and we have a lot of guys willing to do what it takes. So I'm not sure what other people will say, but I think we've put a great product on the floor, one that our fans have enjoyed watching, and one that's, again, has a lot of trust in each other and really believes in each other. And hopefully going down the stretch, the amount of different options that we have and the stinginess of our defense will be something that'll carry us through any tough moments.
Down the stretch, what's the number one area you're looking for to improve? What thing do you want to tighten up on?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think that, you look at what we did against Dayton on the defensive end, and you could say it's all there, that rotation and that trust and that physicalness and the ability to rebound. And then we had a let up against St. Bonaventure. So I think it's just maintaining that focus no matter who your opponent is, making sure you're up for every single game, every single minute of the game. And then it would be nice to see us relax and knock down some shots. I think we've been very successful in the interior, but once we can get those shooters going on the perimeter, now all of a sudden our offense clicks at a level that matches what we can do on the defensive end.
Terrific. Well, we're going to have to wrap things up there. Okay. Coach Rosati, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to break now, and when we come back, Andy Weber will be here to prep us for the next couple of weeks of GW Sports. Stay watching.
Raise high. This isn't just our battle cry. It's our call, our challenge. Because when you are called to Washington, you are called to higher expectations, to a higher standard. We are called here to advance knowledge, to serve society, to change the world. This is the George Washington University, and what we make is history. So stand up, be bold, take risks, press on, push harder, raise high.
Welcome back. Andy Weber, our executive producer, joins us now at the desk. Andy, what game should we be ready for?
GW Sports are back. 11 different varsity teams are playing at least once a week now. First up, men's basketball. On February 23rd, they take on UMass. 3 days later, the boys in buff and blue face DMV rival George Mason. Men's tennis play Temple on February 23rd at the Southeast Tennis Center. The women meet St. Louis on the 25th. Finally, lacrosse clashes with UMBC on the 25th. They then face the midshipmen of Navy on March 1st. Guys?
Thanks for illuminating us, Andy. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for joining us.
As always, make sure to like GWTV on Facebook and follow the show on Twitter at GWTV Unstoppable. For all the Unstoppable crew, we'll see you next time.